Very happy Women's Day to all of our viewers. My name is Arya and I am a volunteer at Stimulus. Stimulus is a youth-led non-profit organization geared towards generating curiosity about neuroscience, psychology, and mental health. We raise awareness, create platforms for people to learn, unlearn, relearn, and spur things into action. In doing so, we at Stimulus harbor a community of budding neuroscientists. On the occasion of Women's Day, we have Professor Peggy Mason joining us for an exclusive interview to discuss the role of women in neuroscience. Professor Mason is a faculty in the Department of Neurobiology at the University of Chicago. She obtained her PhD from the prestigious Harvard University. She is the single author of Medical Neurobiology, second edition, which is readily available in India on Amazon.in. She is also the recipient of the Quantrill Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching in 2018. To educate people and highlight the simplicity of neuroscience, Professor Mason has started an online MOOC course titled Understanding the Brain, the Neurobiology of Everyday Life on Coursera. She has previously delivered talks on how to tackle harassment, on empathy, and a large array of topics in the neuroscientific domain. Actually, Professor Peggy Mason was one of the very first female neuroscientists that I came across when I started looking for women in neuroscience to interview. And the very first thing that I remember reading on the official website of University of Chicago was that Professor Mason's research focuses on the neurobiological basics of empathy and helping. True to the nature of her research, Professor Mason kindly agreed to squeeze in an interview with Stimulus despite of her extremely busy schedule. So Professor Mason, on the behalf of Stimulus and our viewers, I'd like to express our gratitude and a very happy Women's Day to you.
Happy Women's Day to everybody, and thank you so much for having me. As I was saying to you earlier, I'm so impressed with what you've done with Stimulus.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I'm going to ask you a few questions. With your permission, can we start the interview?
Yep.
Sure. So, Professor Mason, what sparked your interest in neuroscience and how did you strengthen and develop this interest of yours?
What sparked my interest in neuroscience? It really, I took a year off during college. That's a little unusual, but I did. And I remember having lunch with a friend of mine. So my friends were all a year ahead of me. And so he tells me that he's going to go to graduate school and they're going to pay him to go to graduate school. And sort of all of a sudden I realized, oh, well, I'm going to graduate in a little bit and I'm going to have to find a job or do something or support myself somehow. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll do this graduate school thing and get paid to go to graduate school. And then I thought, well, what would I want to go to graduate school in? And I had, up till that point, I had been very interested in ecology, evolution, and to going into animal behavior a little bit. And the part I liked the best was animal behavior, but it still wasn't quite what I wanted to do. So I thought, oh, let me look at this neurobiology thing. And what I loved, and I instantly loved it, I took a course from John Dowling at Harvard, a really fantastic teacher. And what I liked about it was that you could understand behavior from a circuit level. You could dissect the behavior and understand how the brain produced the behavior. And I just really liked it. And then I also like, I got into John's lab, and I did intracellular, as an undergraduate, I did intracellular recordings in the retina. And that's just fun. It's super, super fun. There's a certain personality that likes electrophysiology. And I have that personality. It's sort of instant gratification. You ask a question and the cell comes back and there's a question back and forth with the cell. And I really liked it. And I've done I did electrophysiology sort of ever since, until I got into this helping thing, which then I switched to do that, which is a different story. But that's how I got into neuroscience.
Ma'am, actually, sorry, Professor, actually been through a few of your blogs, and that really shows your passion towards neuroscience, and it's really interesting to read. I am sure that we can link a few, if with your permission, we can link a few of your blogs because they're really,
Yeah,
really
sure.
good.
Yeah, I have
Thank you so much.
a blog called thebrainissocool.com.
Yes,
Which
Professor, that is exactly.
I don't write in it often enough, but yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. Did you face any challenges specific to being a woman in a male-dominated field? If so, how did you navigate them, and what kept you going? What kept you inspired to keep going?
I don't think you're always aware of the, or I never suffered from sort of direct harassment, or what we would call quid pro quo harassment. But and so the type of bias, I would say, was not exactly apparent to me when I was in it. And it's not entirely apparent to me now, except that I look around and people that are in the positions of being chairs and positions of leadership, that happens for men way, way more often than it happens for women. And you have to pick your battles. And so there have been times when I have fought against this, and times when I've thought, okay, well, I can go do my science and do my thing and be quite happy. And so I think it's a personal choice. What I say to the students is, if something has happened and it makes you, it's, well, you know, obviously there's a category of things that need to be fought and reported, etc., and people need to be safe. That said, there is a large category of things where you can choose to fight it or you can choose not to. And that depends on where you are in your life and what kind of energy and resources you have for that. And also your position. Right now, I'm a tenured professor, so I can object to things. I can raise my voice, and I'm happy to raise my voice for myself, but even happier to raise my voice for others. There are people that don't have that privilege that I have. That I have it almost not entirely. I'm not entirely immune. I could do things that were really, really bad, and that would be not right. But as long as I do my work and I have a position, I'm employed, so I'm in a really privileged position. So I try to fight things that I see that need to be fought. And I try to support people that are either junior faculty or postdocs or students or staff when they ask for it.
That is really inspirational, Professor. Thank you so much for the answer. What were your initial apprehensions about the field of neuroscience when you just started with your research?
What were my apprehensions when I started?
Yes,
I didn't have any. I tried not to have any. My initial career goal was to be a wildlife biologist and to take care of like an animal preserve in Africa or something. And I thought that there were about 10 jobs in the entire world for somebody with that job description. And I doubted that I could get one of those 10 jobs. So I switched off from that. And then once I got to neurobiology, I thought, there's some jobs. But I can still remember when I was in John Dowling's lab, all the postdocs would tell me there are no jobs. You shouldn't do this, Peggy. There are no jobs. You'll never, you'll be so disappointed because no one's gonna hire us, no one's gonna hire you, blah blah blah. Everyone was so dismal, so pessimistic about the situation, and I basically ignored them, as one does when one is young and optimistic, and luckily it worked out.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in the field? And would you say that you face specific barriers because of being a woman in research?
I think there is a large bias against women. I think a lot of women feel uncomfortable, that it's harder for women to gain comfort in their environment. And it's harder to be the most productive, the most you that you can be if you don't feel comfortable. So that's a real difficulty. I think that women and to a large extent underrepresented minorities, people that come from marginalized groups, don't always feel the degree of comfort that many men do, that people from more mainstream groups do. And I have to pause for 1 minute to let my cat in. Come on, Minnie. Come on. Okay. My cat is now here. She'll want to leave in a minute, but there you go. Say hello to India. Say hello.
Hi, Winnie. Oh,
Hi.
she's beautiful.
Hi. Say hi, beautiful girl. Yes.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Good girl.
She's gorgeous. She
Good
looks
girl.
beautiful.
She's beautiful. Everybody should have a black cat, if you ask me. So do we face bias? I just don't think. I think it's inescapable to it's an inescapable conclusion that we do. And the reason I say that is that if you look at the numbers of graduate students, it's at least in most programs, it's 50% or more are women. You look at postdocs, and I don't know what those percentages are, but they're pretty high. And then it just dives. Once you get to faculty positions, it is no longer majority at all. When you get to, as you climb up the ladder from assistant to associate to full professor, again, you get a decreasing proportion of women that doesn't approach 50%. And the number of women chairs doesn't approach 50%. So it's sort of a you do the math kind of situation. Of course, there's bias. Is it an easy problem? It's not. And is it a direct problem where people say, "Oh, I don't want a woman to be a chair"? No, it's not that either. If it was that simple, we would have solved it. There have been a lot of people trying to solve this for decades, actually. And so it's not an easy problem. And if I had the answers, I'd tell you what they were, but I don't.
Professor, you mentioned about diversity, the fact that people from diverse backgrounds face difficulty getting into fields like research. So how important, in your opinion, is diversity in the field of research, say, research in neuroscience?
Oh, I think it's critical. It's absolutely critical. I think about people. I like history a lot. And what history has taught us is that smart, brilliant, wonderful people with a passion that can make a huge contribution come from all walks of life. I think about people such as Mary Anning, who discovered the first dinosaur fossils in Lyme Regis in the UK. Martha McClintock, who never really had a perfect I'm sorry, Barbara McClintock, who
Barbara,
discovered the sorry about that, discovered the
jumping jacks.
jumping genes, and she didn't have a proper faculty position. There are innumerable astronomers of that ilk. Marie Curie, people thought she was Pierre's sidekick, and in point of fact, if anything, it was a little bit the opposite. Pierre was a equipment genius, but she was the one with the physics ideas, really. And so I think that these individuals, I don't remember the genius mathematician from India. What's his name?
Aryabhatta.
What's that?
Aryabhatta.
Anyway, there was, yes,
Ramanujan.
yeah. You know, there are people that come from all over and just have a talent. And why would we shut the door on that? It's such a poor strategy. If we want to make advances, we have hard problems. We have really hard problems in this world right now. More for you than for me. I'm going to die sooner than you are. But, you know, in your lifetime, you're going to butt up against some really serious climate issues that we're already up against them, but you're going to come up against them even more critically, shall we say. We need to solve these problems. We need to solve energy problems. We need to solve social cohesion problems. And these things need all the great brain power that we can muster. There's just no way that all that brain power comes from one demographic. It comes from all the demographics. We need to make people feel comfortable to make the contributions that they can make. Yes, and now Minnie needs to leave. Okay, Minnie. Okay, Minnie. Out you go. Probably she will be back. She has a personality, by the way.
She sure looks like one with the personality. And she's beautiful, Professor. She's beautiful.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me asking, how old is Minnie?
Minnie she's 11.
Oh, she's had quite a life. Now, moving on to our next question. What is your take on institutional discrimination once women enter the field? And why do you think that women tend to leave labs in bigger institutions at a higher rate than men do?
Women leave neuroscience, well, they leave science at a higher rate than men. I think because they're not comfortable. They're not made to be comfortable. There is a great, they have this added burden of discomfort that doesn't get better with time. I think it gets worse. There's an unbelievable statistics. Well, it's not unbelievable. It's it was a finding. It was published in Science several years ago, where they looked at parents, mothers and fathers, and as the number of children increased, the time that women scientists spent in the lab decreased. But remarkably, the time that the fathers spent in the lab increased as the number of children increased. That's stunning. And that doesn't come from science per se, that comes from society. So we have these problems that are societal. There are, to a certain extent, men are stuck in a role just as much as women are. So men have to work. There are a few men that stay home and make a home, but not many. It is really not, at least in the United States, it's just not reinforced. It's not valued. It's unexpected and looked down upon for a man. It's okay for a woman, but it's not okay for a man. So everyone's getting pigeonholed into things that may or may not fit themselves. And I don't think that does anyone any service.
Right. Because it does add to the stress both in men and women when we like set certain stereotypes that they have to follow. And that is actually also the case here in India, that men have to take up jobs and women are not really encouraged to, especially the demographics. If I talk about the demographics of women in STEM, recently it is developed in the last 10 years, but before that, female faculties in STEM, that it's quite rare to find. And I think it's a global issue, the entire deal about men being stuck in their roles and women being stuck in their roles. Which brings us to the next question. What in your opinion are the impacts of lack of female representation in neuroscience and research?
Well, there are lots of women in neuroscience research.
Right.
There are a lot of women, and I know a lot of women in research. So I wouldn't say that we have a lack of women in neuroscience research. We're not represented at the place that we are in the population, but I'm not sure that's what our goal is. I'm not quite sure what our goal is, but I don't think we're there. I also don't think that our goal is necessarily 50%. But a good healthy 35 to 40% would be lovely. I think that the social science research suggests that what you want is a situation where you have enough of any underrepresented group, whether it's women or some marginalized group, where there are enough individuals that the people see them as individuals rather than as a member of that group. So you can't be the woman in the department, or that woman or this woman, one of two women. You're still, all you become is a woman. You want a situation where you have so many women that you basically decide who you have affiliations with, either scientific or personal, based on something besides gender. Right? We want to get rid of that. And we're not there. Unfortunately, we're not there. There's still, if a couple people get sick, then you're still the only woman in the faculty meeting. That's not good.
Like you said, just mentioned that 35 to 40% would be lovely. How do you think we can encourage more women to get involved in the landscape of science, research, neuroscience as a niche?
I don't know. all I know is that each one of us can make a difference in how we treat other people. We just treat people for who they are and what they say to us, and give everyone the same due respect and interest and investment. and pay attention to people's talents, skills, curiosity level, creativity level, all of that, rather than anything else. And one of the things that I'm not a big fan of is hierarchy. So because I'm a professor and somebody else is a student does not mean that I'm right. It doesn't. And I think that the way that I look at students is that these are future colleagues. And as future colleagues, they can teach me things now. They certainly are bound to teach me things in the future. And I've learned an immense amount from students. And I just think that the goal in life in general is not to bring into any interaction any preconceived notions about who somebody is, but to genuinely engage with that person and meet them where they are.
That is actually a very new take coming from a professor, that they look at students as future colleagues. This is actually really new, and thank you so much for sharing this opinion of yours. As a women in neuroscience, you've been in the field since, if my research is correct, since 1992. You've been a faculty in neuroscience at the University of Chicago. So what does the world look like for a woman in neuroscience?
I think world looks great. I want to reiterate that we have some great women in neuroscience that are just absolute stars. People such as Eve Martyr, Corey Bargman, Huda Akil, Huda Zogby. We have some great women neuroscientists who have both made great scientific contributions, but also have gone out of their way to try to pave the way for other women coming up in neuroscience. So I think that the future is very bright. I think anyone, if you really love it, if you really want to do it, you should do it. I am not a believer in thinking, I ignored the postdocs that were in my lab when I was an undergraduate, telling me you're in it for a bad idea. You're never going to get a job. I just ignored them. The folly of youth. But the folly of youth is good, because if you really want to do this, and one of the things I say to graduate school applicants is, if you need to do this, then this is the right place for you. But you do have to need to do it. It can't be, oh, well, should I go to this or should I go to that? Should I do this or should I do that? You have to have enough fire in your belly that you have to do it. It's driving you. And the reason I say that is because woman, male, man, woman, doesn't matter. You will face rejection in this field, not just as a neuroscientist, but as a scientist. Grants get rejected, papers get rejected, ideas get rejected. There's a lot of rejection, and some of that rejection is correct. A lot of times your ideas are wrong, and some of that rejection is wrong, and every once in a while the rejection is unfair. And regardless of which category it is, you still have to weather it. So the thing that allows you to weather it is not smarts. I've known way smarter people than me. The thing that allows you to weather it is motivation. Really wanting to do it, needing to do it. And if you have that, then the rest will just fall into place.
You just mentioned about rejections and being motivated. So actually, this is actually the time for the results to come out of the applications that were submitted by December for like the fall 2021. So some of our viewers might be getting certain rejections, some might be getting accepted. So do you have any suggestions to make about how to keep oneself motivated despite of a rejection?
Yeah, you take a certain amount of time to emotionally process it, and then within certainly within a week, but as you get older, this gets a little easier, and so within a few, for me, it's within a few days. I try to see what drove that rejection. Where's the truth in it? There's always something you can do better, even when you give it your best shot. And so try to see it from the other side, of the coin. And you'll learn something. I mean, the thing is, if you have success after success after success, you're not really learning much. It takes failure to learn. And our cerebellum is prime example. The cerebellum would be nowhere if you didn't make errors. Well, of course you make errors because when you're starting out to use your cerebellum, you're a baby and you don't know what the hell you're doing. So you make errors, and the cerebellum learns from every single error that you make. And now you don't have a problem standing against gravity. You don't have a problem walking because you've made all those errors. Well, it's the same thing in science. You need to make the errors to learn the lessons, and you have to teach yourself those lessons. And you'll do much, much better if you can get out of a sort of a strict dichotomy, wrong, right. You can, at any point in time, any one of my ideas can be wrong. I could be right, I could be right, I could be right, and then it could be wrong. And then I could go back and I realize, oh, well, I was kind of right about that, but now I see that I wasn't entirely, that this didn't ever quite fit. And now I realize why it didn't fit. So these are use everything as an opportunity to learn.
You have had quite a long career. So what would you think, what would you say was your biggest lesson while working in research? Biggest lesson that you learned?
Biggest lesson? I don't know. I don't, what's my biggest lesson? I can't even imagine what my biggest lesson is. I've had some really, really fun moments. I've had some fun moments with experiments, and I guess actually the biggest lesson happened with probably with my first graduate student, who I unfortunately tried to micromanage. And she really did not like that. And I learned to just, everyone can do things their own way. And they don't actually have to do it my way. You can have certain rules, and there have to be some parameters, etc. I like to look at people's lab notebooks, that type of thing, but to give people some leeway is probably a better idea. And ever since then, I have done that.
This incident that you mentioned, was that the reason why you started considering your students as your future colleagues?
Yeah, I think that was before. It was very, very early in my career, before I really quite understood how much one could learn from students.
I know that you have been really busy today, so I'd like to wrap things up with a final question. What is your advice for women looking to pursue neuroscience or research as their career? And what did you wish you had known going into it while you were young?
What did I wish I had known going into it? I think I did know a few things. I was told a few things. I had some nice, I had some good advice that I received when I was a postdoc. And I think that the transition to be a faculty member is a tough one. And so that advice that I received was pretty useful. So for example, to focus on something that you can achieve, probably not the moment in time when you get your first faculty position to go off and do the dream experiment. I mean, some people do it and some people pull that off, but I'm not that, I wasn't that smart or that capable of doing that. So I did something that was definitely within my capacity. It very much interested me. I thought it was important. I still think it was important. And I just steadily attacked that problem so that you end up having a body of work. And then another important thing is to try to build a story for yourself. You're not building a story for yourself for your career. You're building a story because that's what doing science is. You're trying to, I like it when people focus on an area rather than be spread out all over the place. You can focus on a couple areas, but you really should be focusing, doing one experiment after another on a topic to try to conquer that topic. And when you know what the next experiment will bring, then you're done. You're on to the next experiment. But really dive into a topic. So, I spent 25 years in pain modulation, and then the last 10 plus years in empathy and helping. And I like that switch. I like doing the switch. Doing the switch is really fun. Getting a little bit of a, ooh, okay, we're in a new world now. And getting a fresh perspective is a fun thing to do. You need a little seniority to do that, but yeah, it's a fun thing to do.
Thank you so much, Professor. That was the
Yes,
last question.
absolutely.
And Sasha, you can stop recording now.